Hi folks, better do a watercolour, hadn't I? Otherwise, well, for any new watercolourists, I'll give you a bit of help in describing the paper. Just wetting my brushes. This is a piece of studio paper. It's £130 weight. £130, that means 500 sheets of imperial size weigh £130. Oh, thereabouts. Excuse me, coffee. So this paper is not an easy one to work with for beginners, because the water tends to stay on the surface before it soaks in, whereas the different sort of papers like this Saunders Waterford, this is a hot pressed one, beautiful paper, it soaks straight in, but it's twice the price. So for learners it might be worth persevering with this sort of paper. It comes in packs of 50. I get mine from Art Discount, Grantham's. It's about £32 for 100 sheets, including postage. It's pretty good. It's good value. But as I say, it's a student quality paper or practice paper. Now I'm almost 99% a wet in wet watercolour painter. So I soak the paper first. You can soak it both sides if you want, but that means when you rest it on the board, it'll pick up any old dried watercolour and ruin the other side. So I only wet one side, which will expand it, and when it does, take a couple of clips off, pull it tight and carry on. But there is a critical time that you can paint on it while it's wet. This is why I do very quick skies, and any other colours I want in the landscape, I put it at the time. And then I dry it with a hairbrush, because once the shine starts to go off the paper, that's critical. That's where you get your tide marks, your oasis forming in the paper. Those horrible splodges of expanding paint where it dries and it looks awful. Cauliflowers, you can call them. So when you've done your wet in wet in the first couple of minutes, because that's about all the time you've got, then dry it with a hairdryer, or I'm drying with a hairdryer because I'm demonstrating and I want to crack on with the demo. I don't want a watercolour to go on much past 25 minutes, so I have to work pretty quick. But some artists paint dry anyway. But that's okay. There are no rules to this really. I've just given you some advice that if you wet the paper and then keep adding to it while it's drying off, that's where it's critical. Leave it alone. Then when it's dry, you can start painting your detail, your trees, your mountains, and then while the paint is wet again, you can add thicker paint, because if you use the same consistency paint on wet, it just bleeds into the background and goes nowhere. So you have to have much thicker paint for it to stick and register against the wetter paper. So I'll try and show you that. So we'll wet the paper. I'll give that a good wet. I'm using a hake, a 2-inch, well, a large Ron Manson hake. There are other manufacturers. This is by Pro Art, the only ones I will use. It does everything I want. Or the smaller one, I've got the medium hake here. I've got a couple that Glenn sent me from Hawaii, ready to go. That's how they come packaged. They're not expensive, but they are superb. They can be very infuriating because they split, and when they get older they lose a bit of hairs like I have. So there we are. Now you can see the paper is starting to expand, but we won't worry about that we'll wet the brush again and go in with a background colour, raw sienna, which is a catch-all colour really. It's a great warming colour for skies. So we'll just go over it. Just if you're going to do water, painting the water at the same time. Now while that's wet, you can put a couple of other colours in there. I like a bit of red. I'll explain my palette in a minute. So we just, this dries much lighter than when you put it on. Now we can add a bit of ultramarine to that. I keep my paints in a Ziploc bag. A bit darker in here and there, and there. Right, now we leave it alone. So we get the hairdryer and we dry it. Okay, now we'll reclip, undo those, pull that tight, open that, oops. Okay, so that's nice and flat. Probably sort of just a little bit of water in the paper, but it's fixed to sky. So now we can carry on with whatever we want to put in there. Oh, let's have some distant hills, mountains, whatever you like. The palette is cadmium yellow, raw sienna, alizarin crimson, light red, ultramarine, burnt umber, Payne's grey, burnt sienna. That's now, with the exception of the burnt sienna and the cadmium red, which are my personal favourites. It's a basic Ron Ransom palette that he worked out about 40 years ago, and it's basically suited to our climate in the UK. We get a lot of rain here. Well, we are at the moment, but we do get a lot of rain, especially in the northern counties in Scotland. Tremendous amounts, or in the West Country. So our colours tend to be on the green side. We have to make things warm by using like the reds, the burnt sienna or burnt umber with light red. But if you were in Spain, southern Spain, or on the Mediterranean, you'd modify your palette to brighter colours. So it's a personal choice. I've always used it ever since I found Ron Ransom on a DVD. No, it was a videotape, the VHS tape that was circulating in the art group I belonged to at the time. Well, I did for 25 years. I've got a couple of demos to do for them this year, provided we're allowed to go out and about. And the hake. Well, I was mucking about with, sort of brushy. Brushes like this. Little. I didn't have sables. I used squirrel hair. These are that's a mix. But trying to do a big sky with a little brush was a bit daft, wasn't it? So I looked. This brush here, the hake that Ron Ranson discovered age 50 when he took up watercolour painting. He was involved in advertising, was made redundant, but saw the work of Edward Seago, a great British painter who died, I think in died, I think in 1968. He lived in Norfolk. He was very popular with the royal family, and the Queen Mother owned 80 of his paintings. That's how. But he got no official recognition from the establishment because he wasn't doing abstract, which was all the rage, wasn't it, in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Now, those were some. Okay, there's my mountain range. Out there, high peaks. And when I started to use this brush, it was just magnificent. It just changed everything. I could do big passages like that in next to no time. Realistic. Now I'm going to put some warmer colours in there now. So let's have a bit of burnt sienna. Now I haven't used. Oh yeah, I did one yesterday, didn't I? Or did I? A bit of blue. So we'll just put in something like that, put a bit of a horizon in. Okay, now if you remember I said that if you're going to paint wet in wet, you've got to thicken up your colours. Otherwise they will just bleed into the surrounding area. So we want to have a burnt sienna and ultramarine. Now nice and thick, look. Nice, but I've loosened the paint quite nicely. Add a bit of cad yellow in there. I'll have to clean that. Okay, now we'll just use a bit of green. Now this hake is getting quite old now, and it's got quite a few serrated edges to it, if you can see that. Oops. A bit of Payne's grey as well. We can add a bit of reflection. Pull the hairs out. So it's sort of a distant colour. I'm not really happy with that colour. It's giving a sort of a jagged edge to the trees, which I don't like. Now, I use a tray because I can hold it in my hand. Okay, so there we are, we've got that. Let's put a bit of darker green in there, I think. This yellow is... these are Winsor & Newton cotton colours, which are very good. They're quite inexpensive, relatively inexpensive as art materials go. Right, okay, well, maybe let's just soften up with a bit of water, a bit of clean water. Nice and clean. Get rid of most of the water. Okay, that'll do. Now I'm going to put in a bit of land across here. Well, before I do, let's just get that straight there. Right, okay. Bit of foreground. Now, people worry about foregrounds. No need to. You can just do them very quick. Have a beach, bit of burnt umber, bit of ultramarine, and a bit of what we call dry brush. Okay, that's our beach, and now when that dries we can add some texture to it, and I'm going to build up some of the sides. So I'll dry it off so we can crack on. Yeah, this is what you can do. You can, while the paint's wet, you can do some scraping up a fingernail. I'm not very good with a dry brush with this paper. It's quite smooth. There's not a lot for the brush to bite into. And my horizon looks as if it's a little bit going up, so we'll just change that. I'm flicking the water off on my rug, which is okay because it's only covering up my flooring underneath. Well, that straightens up a little bit. Now, I want to get some trees up here, so let's have something on there. Just take it off. Autumn, nice autumn colour. So let's have a bit of red, and a bit of Payne's grey, and now it's a very light touch. Bit of Payne's grey on the shadow. See with the brush now is so worn out that it's well, that's okay, it doesn't matter. But the edges have got into a sort of a knife edge. Look, you can do all this with a rake. You can use a rigger, of course, I do. Right, let's have a bit of green in there now. I'll put in so if I remember, some trunks in that. Right, let's add a bit of texture. It's very similar to one I did yesterday. Warmer colours in the foreground. Bit of sea cabbage or something. I'll put in a bit of a bush here. Just stuck on that shore there. Okay. To dry. Okay. Right, now just a couple of birds, bit of reflection. Doesn't really show, does it? Bird. Signature. Put it in a mount, we'll have a look at it. Now you can see that the paper has stayed quite flat. Where's my masking tape? Just put a bit of tape on the top, stop it falling down. Then you can straighten up your horizon, twisting it in the mount. Okay, well that's it. I'll just lift you up a bit. There we are. So what I've done, I've got the bulk of the trees here, but I've blocked that side with that bush. Stops you falling off the edge of the painting. I'm not worried about that. That happens with cheap papers. But we've got to have reflection. So that couldn't be more simple, folks. I hope you like it. I hope you get something from it. And I'll see you soon. Bye bye.